Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing The Godfather Part II. So The Godfather Part II came out in 1974 and was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and this is the sequel to the first Godfather film. Although I say it's a sequel, it's actually both a prequel and a sequel to the first Godfather film, because this film involves two different storylines running parallel throughout the film. So the first story we have, the prequel, it starts off in 1901 with a young Vito Corleone, and he witnesses his mother getting killed in Italy. So then what he does, he then flees on a boat to New York City, where he then grows up, and then we fast forward to 1917 when Vito Corleone is a young man and is played by Robert De Niro. The other storyline we have is set in 1958, which is a few years after the end of the first Godfather film, and Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, is now the Don of the family, and he is now in business running things. So it's a very interesting film with these two different storylines running at the same time, and I found that even though this film is actually really long, it's actually 3 hours 20 minutes long, which is a very long film, even longer than the first one. I found that this film flowed very well, and it never really got boring. It always kept my attention, and it was probably due to the fact that the film was going backwards and forwards between these two storylines all the time that I kept wanting to pick up from the last one and go back to it and see where that storyline was going. So first of all, Al Pacino gives a really great performance in this film. I mean, he was excellent in the first one, but in this one, he plays Michael Corleone slightly differently because he's no longer the innocent character that was in the first film. He is now a proper mob boss and is a lot more reckless in his decision making, and you can tell he really has a tight grip on everything and doesn't really want to lose control. And the relationship with his wife, played by Diane Keaton, is also very interesting in this film as well. I must also say, probably in some ways, I actually almost prefer the storyline with the young Vito Corleone, played by Robert De Niro in 1917 in Little Italy, because it's just interesting seeing Vito Corleone, who was such an interesting character in the first film, played by Marlon Brando, see how he got to where he is. And with young Vito Corleone in Little Italy, he is living in this area where there's this mob boss who basically walks around wanting everyone to pay him money, and he tries to get his revenge on it. And I actually find Vito Corleone a lot more likable than Michael Corleone in this film, because all the decisions that young Vito makes, played by Robert De Niro, it almost seems right. It seems like that what he is doing, he is justified in doing it. Whereas a Michael Corleone, he's a lot darker in this film, and a lot of the things he does, a lot of the decisions he makes, it just makes him come across as pretty evil and not particularly likable. And as such, he's almost a villain in this film, really, Michael Corleone, unlike the first film where he was really a good guy. Now, what also makes this film so great is the fantastic musical score by Nino Rota. Obviously, Nino Rota also did the musical score to the first film, and it's fantastic to see the score back again. One of my favourite scores of all time, just very iconic. And I must also mention a fantastic supporting cast. So we have Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen, who gives an excellent performance as usual. And also Talia Shire is also fantastic in this film, just like in the previous one. But I think that John Cazale also gives a great performance as Fredo, because we see a lot more of Fredo in this one. We saw Fredo as a character in the first one, but in this one he really has a lot more screen time. There's a lot more interesting character, and over the years Fredo has really become a very weak member of the family and is easily controlled by other people, and he starts to cause a lot of trouble for Michael in this film, and the relationship between Michael and Fredo is just very conflicted in this film. We do get a sense that, things are not going right for them, and Michael shuns Fredo quite a lot this film, and Fredo is just completely beyond help in this film. And John Cazale, it's such a shame that he died so young, because he gave a fantastic performance in this film as well as the last one. So this film did pretty successful at the Oscars, and in fact it was the first sequel to win the Best Picture Oscar. And lots of people actually think that this film is better than the previous one, which is obviously a very big statement since the first film is arguably one of the greatest films of all time. Me personally, I think this is a fantastic film, but I do not think it is better than the first one. I think it is very close, but because the first one has Marlon Brando in it, it just seems like such an iconic role and such an iconic part of the Godfather series that I sort of miss Marlon Brando a little bit in this one, though I do think Robert De Niro gave a fantastic performance in this film, and he actually won an Oscar for his role in this film. But I always find Vito Corleone a more interesting character than Michael Corleone, which I'm not sure that everybody necessarily agrees with. But having said that, if you look on the IMDb Top 250, The Godfather is number 2 at the moment, and The Godfather Part II is number 3. So both these films are incredibly well respected and have an excellent reputation and are loved by many people. It's just a shame that The Godfather Part 3 wasn't as good as the first two films, but you can't win everything. I think, anyway, I'm not here to talk about Godfather Part 3, but anyway, this is a fantastic sequel. If you love the first Godfather film, you'll definitely love this one, and like I said, lots of people think this film is better than the first one, so please let me know if that's what you think. So I am going to give The Godfather Part 2 a rating of 10 out of 10. I still think it's one of the greatest films of all time. Not as good as the first one, though it is extremely close. So there we go. So that is my review of The Godfather Part 2. So what do you guys think? Have you seen The Godfather Part 2? Would you like to see it? Please let me know down in the comments section what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.